I sit with my hands folded in my lap, watching the rain trace patterns down the window, and I wonder if anyone would notice if I simply dissolved into the silence I've learnt to carry. The dining room hums with their voices. Mother's laugh rings sharp and bright as crystal when Elena describes her latest gallery opening. Father leans forward, eyes warm with pride I haven't seen directed at me in years. My younger sister glows under their attention, her hands dancing through the air as she recounts standing ovations and sold pieces and important people who want to feature her work. I clear my throat softly. I finished my thesis defense yesterday. The words fall into the space between us like stones into deep water. Mother's eyes flick toward me, then away. Father reaches for his wineglass. Eleanor continues her story without pause, and I feel the familiar weight settle over my shoulders. The weight of being less important, less interesting, less worth hearing. The committee said it was one of the strongest presentations they'd seen in years. I try again, voice quiet but steady. Eleanor, tell them about the collector from New York. Mother interrupts, her hand touching my sister's arm. With such tenderness, my chest aches. I close my mouth. The words I prepared dissolve on my tongue. 3 years of research, countless sleepless nights. A perfect defense that earned me the highest honors. None of it matters enough to earn 30 seconds of their time. Across the table, David scrolls through his phone. My fiancé of 2 years hasn't looked up once since we sat down. When I tried to tell him about my achievement in the car, he'd asked me to be quiet because he was on an important call. The call ended 20 minutes ago. He hasn't asked me to continue. Could you pass the salt? Elena asks me directly, finally acknowledging my presence. I hand it to her without speaking. She doesn't say thank you. She never does. The dinner continues around me like I'm a ghost at my own family table. I am 28 years old, and I have spent my entire life learning to make myself smaller, quieter, less demanding of space or attention or love. I have a doctorate in biomedical engineering. I have published papers that are changing how we approach genetic therapy. I have built something meaningful from nothing but determination and sleepless nights. None of it has ever been enough to make them see me. After dinner, I follow David to his car. The rain has stopped, leaving the world slick and dark. He drives in silence, and I watch the city lights blur past the window. I'm proud of what I accomplished, I say quietly into the darkness between us. That's good, he replies, his tone absent and automatic. Can we talk about this later? I have an early meeting tomorrow. We've been having this same conversation for 2 years. Every achievement I bring to him disappears into his indifference like smoke. I used to believe he was busy, stressed, distracted by important things. Now, I understand he simply doesn't care. Eleanor mentioned she wants you to photograph her next exhibition, I say, testing something I've suspected for months. His shoulders shift, a tiny movement, but I catch it. She's got a good eye for composition. It would be good exposure for my work. You never photographed any of my presentations. That's different. Academic stuff doesn't translate to visual media the way art does. Everything he says sounds reasonable on the surface, logical, fair, but underneath runs the same current that flows through every interaction with my family. Eleanor's work matters because it's beautiful and public and easy to understand. My work matters less because it's complex and quiet and happens in laboratories where no one sees. I have spent my whole life being the daughter they didn't quite want, the sister who existed in the wrong shadow, the fiancé who asked for too much attention. I have made myself so quiet that I barely exist anymore. That night, I can't sleep. I stand at my apartment window watching the city breathe below me, feeling hollow and tired in ways that go deeper than exhaustion. Tomorrow, I'm supposed to meet with Eleanor to help her prepare for her exhibition. Next week, I'm supposed to attend another family dinner where they'll celebrate her successes and glance past mine. Next month, David and I are supposed to finalize wedding plans for a marriage I no longer believe will make either of us happy. I press my forehead against the cool glass and close my eyes. I'm so tired of being invisible. The thought arrives with such clarity it frightens me. Not angry, not desperate, just factual and final. I'm tired of performing silence for people who will never learn to listen. I don't hear the car that runs the red light. I only feel the impact, sudden and absolute, as I step into the crosswalk the next morning on my way to the university. The world tilts sideways. Pain explodes through me, sharp and then curiously distant. I'm aware of sky where ground should be, of voices shouting from very far away, of something warm spreading beneath me. My last thought in that first life is almost funny in its simplicity. At least now, they'll have to notice. Darkness folds around me like wings, and I let it carry me away from the pain and the noise and the endless, exhausting effort of trying to matter to people who will never see me clearly. I breathe out, and then I breathe in again. The air tastes different, sharper, cleaner somehow. I open my eyes to my childhood bedroom, to posters I took down 10 years ago, to a desk cluttered with high school textbooks. My hands are smooth and unmarked by the lab work that would scar them later. My body feels lighter, younger, unburdened by the weight I've carried for so long. I sit up slowly and the memories crash over me like a wave. Both lives. The one I just left, where I died at 28, having never been truly seen. And this one, where I'm 17 again, with everything still ahead of me. I don't cry. I don't panic. I simply sit in the morning light streaming through my window and feel something new unfold in my chest. Understanding. I have been given something impossible. A second chance, a blank page. The knowledge of exactly where my path led when I spent my life seeking approval from people who would never give it. I will not make the same mistakes again. Downstairs, I hear Mother calling Eleanor for breakfast. Her voice carries that particular warmth she reserves for my sister. Once that sound would have sent me hurrying downstairs, hoping today might be different, hoping my presence might inspire the same affection. I take my time getting dressed. I choose clothes I like, not ones designed to blend into backgrounds. I brush my hair slowly, studying my younger face in the mirror. I look less tired, less hunted. The permanent tension I carried between my shoulders hasn't formed yet. I will not let it form this time. When I finally go downstairs, breakfast is already underway. Eleanor sits in her usual spot, talking about the art program she wants to apply to. Father nods along, asking thoughtful questions. Mother refills her coffee with attentive care. They barely glance up when I enter. "Good morning," I say clearly, taking my seat. "Morning," Father replies absently, his attention still fixed on Eleanor's plans. I serve myself breakfast in silence. Not the painful silence of swallowing words, but the deliberate silence of someone who has nothing to prove. I eat slowly, tasting my food, present in my own body, in ways I never allowed myself before. "What are your plans for today?" Mother asks Eleanor. "I'm meeting with the art teacher to discuss my portfolio," Eleanor says. Then she turns to me with that familiar expectant expression. "You're still going to help me organise my pieces this weekend, right?" In my first life, I said yes immediately. Spent my entire weekend arranging her work, offering feedback she never asked for, making myself useful in hopes of earning her appreciation. She thanked me distantly before asking me to be quiet because she needed to concentrate. "I have other plans," I say simply. Elena blinks. "What plans?" "Personal ones." The table goes quiet. Not the comfortable quiet of breakfast, but the sharp quiet of surprise. Mother's fork pauses halfway to her mouth. Father finally looks directly at me, his eyebrows slightly raised. "But you always help Elena with her exhibitions," Mother says slowly. "I did," I agree. "I won't anymore." "Why not?" Eleanor's voice carries an edge of confusion and something that might be irritation. I meet her eyes steadily. Because I'm going to focus on my own work from now on. I finish my breakfast while they process this small rebellion. It doesn't feel like rebellion, though. It feels like the first honest thing I've said to them in years. When I stand to clear my plate, Mother reaches out as if to stop me, then lets her hand fall. "We'll talk about this later," she says, her tone suggesting this is a phase that will pass. I don't argue. I simply wash my plate and go back upstairs to my room, leaving them to their confusion. That afternoon, I go to the library. Not the school library, but the university library across town that I discovered in my first life, only after I'd already started my doctorate. I spend hours there mapping out a different path. In my first life, I chose my field partially because I thought it might impress them. Biomedical engineering seemed important enough, useful enough, that they'd have to acknowledge it. They never did. This time, I choose what genuinely calls to me. I've always been drawn to environmental science, to the elegant systems that sustain life, on scales too large for most people to comprehend. I lost that passion trying to become someone my family might finally see as valuable. I won't lose it again. The weeks that follow establish a new pattern. I'm polite at family dinners, but I don't perform for their attention. When they talk over me, I don't try harder to be heard. I simply stop speaking and turn my focus elsewhere. When Elena asks for help, I decline without explanation or apology. When Mother suggests I should be more supportive of my sister, I smile and say nothing. The silence I carry now is different. It's not the silence of someone who's been told to be quiet. It's the silence of someone who's chosen not to waste words on people who won't value them. At school, I join the Environmental Science Club. I volunteer at the Nature Preserve on weekends. I write papers that I submit to young researchers' journals because they matter to me, not because I'm trying to prove anything to anyone. My grades are excellent, but I don't bring them up at dinner. My achievements are mine now, not offerings laid at the feet of people who will never appreciate them. 3 months pass before they truly notice something has changed. It's another family dinner. Eleanor has won some regional art award. Mother has cooked her favourite meal. Father keeps toasting her success. I sit quietly, eating my food, present but not participating in their celebration. "You're awfully quiet tonight," Father says, and there's something uncertain in his voice. "Am I?" I ask mildly. "Don't you have anything to say about your sister's achievement?" "Congratulations," I say to Eleanor directly. "You must be very proud." The words are perfectly appropriate, perfectly empty. Elena's eyes narrow slightly, like she's trying to solve a puzzle she can't quite see. "What about you?" Mother asks. "What have you been up to?" It's the first time in months any of them have asked. In my first life, this moment would have felt like victory. Finally, they're asking about me. Finally, I have their attention. Now I understand it's not real curiosity. It's confusion about why I've stopped seeking their approval. The usual, I say. School? Research? Volunteering? Volunteering where? Father asks. The Nature Preserve? Oh. He sounds disappointed, like he was hoping for something more impressive. That's nice. The conversation shifts back to Eleanor. I finish my meal and excuse myself early, citing homework. No one protests. As I gather my things, I catch Mother watching me with an expression I can't quite read, something between concern and bewilderment. I am becoming a stranger to them, not through anger or confrontation, but through simple, steady withdrawal. I am no longer available to be their audience, their helper, their forgotten daughter who tries so hard to matter. I am simply myself, and myself has no need of their validation anymore. Senior year arrives. I apply to universities far from home, focusing on their environmental science programs. When the acceptance letters arrive, I open them privately in my room. I get into my first choice, a prestigious program on the other coast with a full scholarship. I wait until dinner to mention it, not because I need their approval, but because it's information they should have. I've been accepted to Clearwater University. I say during a lull in conversation. I'll be moving there in August. The silence that follows is different from all the others. Mother's fork clatters against her plate. Father's head snaps up. Eleanor stops mid-sentence, her mouth hanging slightly open. Clearwater, Mother repeats. But that's across the country. Yes. Why would you go so far away? Father demands. There are perfectly good schools here. Clearwater has the best environmental science program in the nation, I explain calmly. It's where I want to be. Environmental science? Eleanor echoes. Since when are you interested in that? Always, I say simply. Mother shakes her head like I've said something absurd. This is ridiculous. You can't just decide to move across the country without discussing it with us first. I'm 18 in 2 months, I reply. I can decide where I want to study. What about David? She asks, grasping at straws. I pause because this is the conversation I've been avoiding. David exists in this timeline too. We started dating 6 months ago, right on schedule from my first life. He's charming and handsome and completely uninterested in anything I say, unless it relates to him. I broke up with him 3 weeks ago. He'd asked me to be quiet during a movie because he couldn't hear the dialogue. Such a small thing. The kind of thing I would have accepted without question in my first life. But I heard the echo of all the times he would tell me to be quiet over the next decade, and I simply stood up and walked out of the theatre. When he called later, demanding to know what was wrong, I told him I was done. He seemed more confused than hurt. I don't think he ever understood what we were to each other beyond comfortable companionship. David and I aren't together anymore, I tell my family. What? Mother looks genuinely shocked. When did this happen? A few weeks ago. Why didn't you tell us? You didn't ask. The truth of that statement hangs in the air. They didn't ask because they've never really asked about my life. They assumed I would always be here, always available, always willing to shape myself around their needs and expectations. This is because we didn't make a big deal about that science fair thing, isn't it? Eleanor says suddenly, and there's defensiveness in her voice. You're punishing us for not being excited enough about your projects. I look at my sister, really look at her, and I feel something unexpected. Not anger, not hurt, just a kind of distant sadness for how little she understands. I'm not punishing anyone, I say quietly. I'm just choosing myself for once. That's selfish, Mother says, her voice sharp with frustration. Maybe, I acknowledge, but I've spent my whole life being whatever you needed me to be, and it was never enough. I'm done trying. Father leans back in his chair, studying me with an expression I've never seen before. When did you become so cold? The question almost makes me laugh. Cold. They think my self-possession is coldness because they've never seen me as anything but eager to please, desperate for scraps of their attention. I'm not cold, I say. I'm just finally warm enough to stop seeking heat from people who only ever gave me frost. I stand up, leaving my half-finished dinner on the table. As I walk away, I hear Mother start to say something, but Father stops her. Their voices follow me up the stairs, confused and concerned in ways they never were when I was actively hurting. The summer before college is quiet. I work at the nature preserve, saving money and building connections with the researchers who share my interests. I come home to sleep and occasionally for meals, but I've effectively moved out emotionally. My family orbits around me now with uncertain energy, like they're trying to figure out how to reach someone they've just realised they never knew. Elena tries to bridge the gap a few times. She knocks on my door late at night, wanting to talk about art and life and sisterly things. I'm polite, but distant. I don't slam doors or shout accusations. I simply don't invest in a relationship that only ever flowed one direction. I don't understand why you're being like this, she says one night, frustration evident in her voice. I know, I reply gently. That's part of the problem. A week before I'm scheduled to leave for Clearwater, Mother corners me in the kitchen. Father and Elena are out, and it's the first time we've been alone together in months. I want to understand, she says, and there's genuine confusion in her eyes. What happened to you? You used to be so sweet and helpful, and now you're just distant. I'm washing dishes, and I keep my hands moving in the warm water, finding comfort in the simple repetition. I grew up, I say finally. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. I dry my hands and turn to face her. You always loved Eleanor more. I understand that now. Some parents have favourites, even when they try not to. But I spent 18 years trying to earn the same affection you gave her without thinking. I made myself quiet when I wanted to speak. I made myself small when I wanted to take up space. I supported her dreams while mine went unnoticed. And it was never, ever enough. Mother's face pales. That's not fair. We love you both equally. You might believe that, I say, and my voice is kind despite the truth in my words. But belief and reality are different things. You can love us equally in theory while showing her preference in every action. We celebrated your achievements, she protests. You acknowledged them when I forced you to notice. There's a difference. She opens her mouth to argue, then closes it. I can see her replaying years of dinners, of conversations, of casual dismissals she never recognised as wounds. I didn't realise, she whispers finally. I know, I say. That's why I'm not angry anymore. You can't fix something you don't know is broken. But I can stop breaking myself against your lack of awareness. So you're just leaving, giving up on us? I'm not giving up on anything. I'm choosing myself. There's a difference. I leave her standing in the kitchen, and I don't look back. Clearwater University exceeds every expectation. The program is rigorous and collaborative. My professors treat my ideas with respect. My research matters in ways that feel tangible and real. I make friends who ask about my work and actually listen to the answers. I date occasionally, and when someone tells me to be quiet, I walk away without hesitation. I build a life that feels like mine. I don't call home often. When I do, the conversations are brief and surface level. Mother asks careful questions that suggest she's been thinking about what I said. Father sounds uncertain, like he's talking to a stranger who happens to share my name. Eleanor seems hurt by my distance, but she doesn't understand it enough to bridge it. I graduate with top honours and immediately start my master's programme. My thesis on coral reef restoration gets picked up by a major environmental journal. A documentary filmmaker wants to feature my research in her project about young scientists changing the field. I don't tell my family about any of it. They find out when Eleanor sees my name in an article she's reading for one of her classes. She calls me, and for the first time in years, there's something other than confusion in her voice. Why didn't you tell us? Shunamo? Attila, she demands. This is huge. You're being featured in documentaries. Your research is getting international attention, and we had to find out from a random article? Would you have listened if I told you? I ask calmly. The silence on the other end of the line is answer enough. That's what I thought, I say not unkindly. Mom and Dad are devastated, she says, changing tactics. They feel like they've lost you. They never had me. Not really. They had the version of me that made myself convenient and quiet and small enough to ignore. I took that version away. What's left is someone they never bothered to know. That's cruel. It's honest. Eleanor is quiet for a long moment. When she speaks again, her voice is smaller. I miss you, the you I remember. That version of me was dying, I tell her, and it's the truest thing I've ever said. I let her go so I could live. After that call, Mother starts emailing. long messages full of memories and apologies and attempts to understand. She sends articles about my research with notes saying how proud she is. Father adds stiff, formal comments about my achievements. I read them all. I don't respond to most of them. It's not cruelty. It's simply that I've moved on from needing their validation. Their pride now feels like too little, too late. They're celebrating achievements they had no hand in nurturing, praising work they never supported when it mattered. 3 years into my doctoral programme, I'm invited to speak at an international environmental science conference. It's the kind of opportunity that can define a career. My research on sustainable ecosystem restoration is being recognised as genuinely innovative. The conference is in the city where I grew up. I don't mention this to my family. The night before my presentation, I'm having dinner at the hotel restaurant when I see them. Elena first, then mother and father behind her. They're dressed for something formal, probably one of Elena's gallery events. They haven't seen me yet, and I have a moment to decide whether to slip out or stay. I stay. Elena spots me first. Her eyes widen, and she touches mother's arm, pointing in my direction. I watch recognition cross their faces, followed by a complicated mix of emotions I don't try to name. They approach my table slowly, like I might disappear if they move too quickly. "We didn't know you were in town," mother says, and there's hurt in her voice. "I'm here for a conference," I reply calmly. "A conference?" Father looks at me with new eyes, seeing, perhaps for the first time, the professional I've become. "What kind of conference?" "The International Summit on Environmental Restoration. I'm one of the keynote speakers tomorrow." The silence that follows feels heavy with all the years of words unsaid and unheard. "Can we come?" Eleanor asks suddenly. "To your presentation?" I study my sister. She's changed too. Gotten older, more thoughtful perhaps. Her success has continued. I know this from occasional internet searches I'll never admit to. But there's something uncertain in her eyes now, like she's finally realising what she lost when she never bothered to look beyond her own spotlight. "It's open to the public," I say. "If you want to attend, you can." "We want to," mother says quickly. "We'd very much like to be there." I nod once, acknowledgement without commitment, and return to my dinner. They hover for another moment before father gently guides mother and Elena away. I watch them go in the reflection of the window, and I feel nothing but calm. The next day, I deliver my presentation to a packed auditorium. My research is solid, my delivery confident. I've become the kind of speaker who commands attention, not by demanding it, but by offering something worth listening to. Halfway through, I spot them in the audience. Row 12, seats on the aisle. Mother sits perfectly still, her eyes locked on me. Father leans forward, actually listening. Eleanor holds a notebook, taking notes like this is something she genuinely wants to remember. I don't change my delivery. I don't perform for them. I simply continue doing what I came here to do, speaking to the room full of scientists and researchers who value my work. When I finish, the applause is substantial. The question and answer session runs long because people are genuinely engaged with my research. I'm offered drinks by colleagues, invited to dinners, handed business cards by people who want to collaborate. Through it all, I'm aware of my family waiting at the edge of the crowd. Finally, when most people have dispersed, they approach. "That was incredible," Eleanor says, and she sounds like she means it. I understood maybe half of it, but what I did understand was brilliant. "Thank you," I say simply. Mother's eyes are bright with unshed tears. "I'm so proud of you." The words I spent 18 years desperate to hear. Now they land with the weight of missed opportunities and lost time. "Are you?" I ask, and my voice is gentle, not accusatory. "Or are you proud now that other people have validated what you never saw?" She flinches like I've struck her. "That's not fair." "Maybe not," I acknowledge, "but it's true." Father clears his throat. "We made mistakes. We see that now. We took you for granted, and we're sorry. I appreciate that, I say, and I mean it. But apologies don't undo the damage. They don't give me back the years I spent making myself quiet for you. What can we do? Mother asks, and there's desperation in her voice. How do we fix this? I look at the three of them, and my family who finally sees me now that I've stopped seeking their vision. I feel the weight of both my lives, the one where I died invisible, and the one where I chose to live visible only to myself. You can't fix it, I say quietly. The relationship we could have had exists in a timeline we'll never get back. I needed you to see me then. I needed you to listen when I spoke. I needed you to value me before the world told you I was valuable. And now? Eleanor whispers. Now I'm complete without that need. I've built a life that doesn't require your approval. I've become someone I'm proud of without your pride. So that's it? Father asks. You're just cutting us off forever. I'm not cutting you off. I'm simply not giving you access to parts of myself you never valued. You're welcome in my life as distant relatives who occasionally check in, but I won't perform closeness we don't have. I won't pretend years of being unheard didn't shape me into someone who learned to stop speaking. Mother is crying now, quiet tears that track down her face. I love you, she says. I know I didn't show it the way you needed, but I do love you. I believe you, I say gently. But love without attention is just a word. You loved me in the abstract while ignoring me in the specific. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done accepting less than I deserve. I gather my things, preparing to leave for the next session. Before I go, I turn back to them one final time. I used to think there was something wrong with me, that I was too quiet or too boring or too complicated to love properly. I spent my whole life trying to fix whatever flaw made me invisible to you, and then I realized there was nothing to fix. The problem was never me. It was that you were looking at Elena so intently, you forgot to look at me at all. We're looking now, Eleanor says, and her voice breaks. I know, I tell her, but I don't need you to anymore. That's the part you don't understand. I spent so long desperate for your attention that I nearly destroyed myself reaching for it. Now I'm free from that need, and it's the most powerful thing I've ever felt. I leave them standing in the emptying auditorium, and I don't look back. The years that follow are full and rich. My career flourishes. I travel for research, speak at conferences, mentor graduate students who remind me of my younger self. I fall in love with someone who asks about my day and actually listens to the answer. We build a life together based on mutual respect and genuine interest in each other's worlds. I don't return home for holidays. I don't call on birthdays. I respond to occasional emails with brief, polite updates. My family becomes a distant fact of my life rather than its centre. I hear through the grapevine that Mother talks about me constantly now, that she keeps articles about my research on the refrigerator, that she tells anyone who will listen about her daughter, the scientist, her daughter who's changing the world, her daughter who's brilliant. The irony is not lost on me. Elena gets married. She sends me an invitation with a handwritten note asking me to be there. I send a card and a gift, but don't attend. Father has health issues. Mother emails asking me to visit. I send flowers to the hospital with a card wishing him well. I'm not cruel, I'm simply boundaried. I give what I can without compromising the peace I've worked so hard to build. 5 years after that conference, I win a major international award for my work. It comes with substantial prize money and global recognition. The ceremony is broadcast live. I know they're watching. Mother sends an email 3 minutes after my acceptance speech. Paragraphs of pride and love and regret. Father calls and leaves a voicemail saying he always knew I was special. Eleanor texts a simple message. You were always going to be extraordinary. I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to prove it. I read the email. I listen to the voicemail. I see the text, and I feel nothing but peaceful satisfaction that I built this life despite them, not because of them. That night, I am at the celebratory dinner surrounded by colleagues and friends who have championed my work from the beginning. My partner sits beside me, their hand warm in mine. I'm telling a story about a field research disaster that turned into a breakthrough, and everyone at the table is laughing and engaged and genuinely interested. This is what I was looking for all along, not validation from people who were biologically obligated to love me, but authentic connection with people who chose to see me because I was worth seeing. I raise my glass when someone proposes a toast, and I catch my reflection in the window behind our table. I look confident, settled, whole. I look like someone who learned that the quietest revenge is simply refusing to disappear, even when the people who should have noticed you never did. That the deepest justice is building a life so full and rich that their regret cannot touch it. That the truest power is realizing you never needed them to recognize your worth, because you always had it yourself. They told me to be quiet when I spoke. After my rebirth, I never spoke to them again. And in the silence I chose, I finally found my voice.